Gerry and Sylvia Anderson were stone cold geniuses that worked with stone cold geniuses to create stone cold genius television. So naturally we are just massive fans of this channel and have covered their work extensively. So with that in mind, we are going to celebrate this channel's second birthday with a top 5 list of the greatest, most iconic moments brought to us by the geniuses that were Gerry and Sylvia Anderson. Before we begin though, please remember that, as usual, this is my personal view. Although having said that, you're free to disagree with me as much as you want. Just leave a comment below. And if you really disagree with me, you can hop on over to X and disagree with me there as well. Just be gentle, I do bruise quite easily. Now all that's out of the way, let's get on with the list. Number 5. Stingray. Well, specifically speaking, the terrorfish chase. So we take it for granted nowadays that when you watch any science fiction, the alien ships, well, they're going to be organic looking. And Stingray was a real pioneer for this. Just look at the design of the terrorfish, and in fact, most of the other submarine designs in it. One of the other things Stingray done absolutely brilliantly was fostering a real sense of fun. And when this is combined with Stingray's launch sequence, for instance, or Marineville going to battle stations, it makes a damn perfect children's television programme. And all of these ingredients come together perfectly in this moment. You get comedy, you get action, you get brilliant special effects. This moment is utterly bonkers, but above all, it is so much fun. Number 4. The Andersons and Barry Gray. That's just a match made in heaven, ain't it? Now, I have to be so careful with this one, because if I play any of it, I'm just going to get copyright struck from like Orbit. Now, we have spoken a lot on this channel about the special effects used in the Andersons productions, but I think it's about time we started talking about the music, because Anderson productions are very much a multi-sensory experience, and that tension you feel watching Thunderbirds, well, that's only half what you see on the screen. The other half of it comes from the music. And thanks to Barry Gray, that music was second to none. The Andersons never made a show whose theme tune wasn't completely iconic the first time you heard it. They do concerts of this stuff that are like sold out in minutes. And I'm fully aware that I'm on an hiding for nothing trying to pick out the best one. But this is my list, my channel, and my problem. So at number 4, we have Fireball from Fireball XL5. And I can hear you now typing away in the comment section. Come on, British Sci-Fi. All of the Gerry Anderson stuff. Why have you chosen that one? You could have chosen Thunderbirds, Space 1999, anything but that one. Now, steady on. Before you start having a go at me in the comment section, let me explain. I think it was a really ballsy move, because it wasn't just about space battles and high-tech adventure. It had romance, it had nostalgia, it had a weird sense of melancholic optimism. And it stuck, because if you play that tune to anybody that grew up in the 60s, they recognise it instantly. It is one of the few science fiction themes that doesn't sound like a science fiction theme. And that's why it works. And it makes Fireball XL5 seem so much bigger than just another space show. It makes it feel like a dream. Since I can't play the bloody thing for you, you guys will just have to settle for the link I put in the description. Anyway, talking about great theme music, number 3, Space 1999, specifically Breakaway, and that explosion. So, by the 1970s, British sci-fi had a bit of a reputation. Great stories, but all shaky sets and wobbly monsters. Utterly charming, but low budget. And then Space 1999 happened. Compared to what else British sci-fi was offering you in the 70s, this, well, it's pure Hollywood, with its huge sets and film quality miniatures, a brooding cinematic tone, and nowhere was that ambition clearer than Breakaway, the first episode. Because straight off the bat, we're not gently eased into this world. Breakaway goes full-on disaster movie, with Moonbase Alpha being this quiet scientific outpost when all fucking hell breaks loose. We get one of the biggest disasters ever put to screen in this episode. The moon itself is blasted out of orbit. The way this is shot, the way this is paced, is absolutely gripping. And in the middle of all of this action, all of this chaos, we get one of the most defining moments in science fiction history, because we get that explosion. This moment almost acts like a manifesto for the whole show. It is saying quite categorically to the viewer in the 1970s that, hey, you can carry on watching the same crappy old sci-fi you've been watching for years, or you can join us on this adventure. So it's for these reasons, and the fact that we get introduced to probably one of the best sci-fi vehicles of all time in this episode, the Eagle Transporter, that Breakaway is at number 3 in our list. Oh, we're getting close, aren't we? Number 2. Come on, it wouldn't be one of my lists without Thunderbirds. Out of everything the Andersons produced, this is the jewel in the crown. Now, I made an entire video dedicated to my favourite episode of Thunderbirds, but this show is full of moments that could make this list. All of the explosions, all of the rescues, the sheer grandeur of it all. But in the context of this list, well, it can only be Attack of the Alligators. Because even as an episode of Thunderbirds, it is completely bonkers. On the face of it, this really shouldn't work. Mixing up real life alligators with miniature sets and puppets. This is absolutely genius. This episode is technically excellent. It has such a fun premise, with some genuinely atmospheric filmmaking going on as well. Also, for the first time in Thunderbirds, we've got a genuinely competent villain. Add to this the use of real-life alligators, who are being given quite heavy doses of electricity to make them perform. In actual fact, the production team were being too timid with these electric shocks, until the man from the RSPCA said it was alright to ramp the old voltage up a bit. It's also a very different type of rescue for Thunderbirds, because usually it's either very high stakes and the Tracy brothers will just tech their way out of it, or it's one of the spy thriller episodes with Lady Penelope. This episode is neither of those two. The Tracy brothers face a real genuine threat from these absolutely fantastic alligators, and as I mentioned earlier, a genuinely cunning and competent villain. Arguably, more than any other episode, International Rescue really have their hands full in this episode. For these very compelling reasons, Attack of the Alligators makes it to number 2 on my list. But there is another reason, and it's even more compelling. And it's also very simple. It's because this episode has Thunderbird 2, Thunderbird 4, and giant alligators. And those giant alligators are wrecking up the joint. So we're nearly there. We're nearly at number 1. But it's time for some honourable mentions. Firstly, the UFO episode Time Lash, because that episode is tripping balls. Then we have Thunderbird 2 launch sequence. Those launch sequences were part of the ingredients that made Thunderbirds so great, and Thunderbird 2 had the best one. Sticking with Thunderbirds, we've got the Zero X rescue from Thunderbirds Our Go. I genuinely believe that in the cold light of day, that is one of the most thrilling action sequences ever. And finally, we have the intro to Stingray, because it is possibly the most exciting intro to anything on television ever. Now, I am fully aware that by creating this list and posting it to YouTube, that I'm hiding for nothing. But, as I always say, this is just my personal view. And you are free to disagree. In fact, I encourage you to do so, because interacting with you guys in the comment section is so much fun. In the past 2 years, I've said this repeatedly, but I'll say it again. Out of all of the fandoms, and I come in contact with a lot of them on this channel, But out of all of them, the Anderson fandom is just the best. You are so enthusiastic, you are so knowledgeable, you never gatekeep, and you have been very kind to this Cockney hooligan with a big mouth. So yeah, argue with me in the comment section, because I really enjoy your perspective. Now I've said all that, number 1, the death of Captain Scarlet and his resurrection. So one of the very first videos I made for this channel was about Captain Scarlet and the Mysterons. And in that video, I explored all of the very dark themes that are present in that show. It's those themes that make this my number 1 choice. And the fact that Captain Scarlet is such a wild departure from what went before. Even the very look of the show is totally different. Thunderbirds, with its atomic age optimism, gave way to something that was very psychedelic and very colourful, but at the same time very mature and very dark. And this darkness is brought into very sharp focus during the first episode, because in what is possibly the ballsiest move ever in the history of children's television, our hero is unalived twice. And it's not just hinted at, it's not shown off screen, it is shown in detail. In the first instance, Captain Scarlet is unalived in a violent car crash, and the camera doesn't shy away. It lingers over his little unalived puppet body. This is a children's television show. And then later on, it happens again, because our hero, the one that all the kids should be loving, is actually a villain in this episode. He's kidnapped the world president and he's being pursued by the Angels and Captain Blue, whom he has this final showdown with. And Captain Blue gets him. Captain Scarlet gets got. And again, the camera doesn't shy away from this. We see the agony in Captain Scarlet's face, for instance, as he is clinging on for his life. And then we see him fall 800 feet to his death. It is for these reasons that this is one of the greatest 25 minutes of children's television ever made. From the very outset, this show was brave. It never patronised its audience. In 25 minutes of television, we would get all of these dark themes, all of this grit, all of this religious symbolism, all packaged and made easily accessible for children to understand. And all of this is distilled into that one moment at the top of the London car view, where Captain Scarlet gets got by Captain Blue. That's why it's number 1. So this has been my celebration episode, because the decline and fall of British sci-fi is 2 years old now. And I want to say a huge thank you to all of you, to everybody that's subscribed, everybody that's watched, everybody that's liked, everybody that's commented. Thank you. To everybody that supported me, thank you. Because you have made the process of bringing to life this just insane idea I had so much fun. And as I said earlier, it's just so much fun interacting with you guys. So that's 2 years down. Let's see what I can do in 3. Thank you for watching. Please remember to hit the old like and subscribe button. And also, I hate being this guy, but hit the old notification bell as well, because that really helps the channel out. You can also follow me on X, link in the description, alongside the link to my Blue Sky and my Facebook group. Anyway, once again, thank you for watching, and thank you for the past 2 years.
The skies, they scream with dissent. Sounds like the end.